Figures 9.17 through 9.19, default member-wise assignment. Now it turns out with every single class that you create, there is a series of member functions that are provided automatically by the compiler, one of which is the default constructor, which of course is only provided if you don't provide a constructor. Another of which is the destructor, which again is only provided if you don't provide a destructor. A third is the assignment operator for what we call default member-wise assignment, and that's what we'll be talking about in this example. And then another one is actually the so-called default copy constructor, which allows one object of a class to be copied into another object of the same class. So we're going to talk more about copy constructors in a later lesson. So for the moment, we're going to focus on the assignment operator in this example. And in fact, to show you what we're going to do, let's look at the main program first here, and we'll be manipulating objects of our own class called date, which is going to represent months, days, and years, month, day, and year within an object of class date. In line 12, for example, we have a date object that's initialized to July 4th, 2004, and at line 13 we have another date object which is initialized to the default, which for our class is January 1st, 2000. And basically we're then going to display the contents of each of our date objects. And at line 20 is the key line where we're showing you that we can assign one date object to another. And what happens here is automatically the date object on the right, which has a month member, that member is assigned to the date object on the left's month member. The one on the right's day member gets assigned to the one on the left's day member, and the one on the right's year member gets assigned to the one on the left's year member. So after doing that, we will then display the value of date 2 once again to show you that the assignment actually worked. So let's run this program and show you the outputs so you can see the two different objects as they were initialized. And of course now we assign date 1 to date 2, and after that assignment we can see that date 2 is now also July 4th, 2004. So clearly the assignment operator has worked for us in this example, and again that's because by default objects of the same type can be assigned to one another. And in a later lesson in the C++ Fundamentals Part 2, we'll take a look at operator overloading in detail, and we'll talk about how to define custom assignment operators as well. So let's take a look at our date class here. And you can see that the date class has three integers, month, day, and year, to represent the portions of a date. We have our constructor, which receives three default arguments. January 1st, 2000 is what the default arguments represent, and then we have a print function that allows us to display the contents of a date object. And finally, the constructor implementation here shows you that it receives three parameters and simply assigns them to month, day, and year. For the purpose of this example, we chose not to implement any kind of validity checking. And then for the print function, we're just outputting the month followed by a /, the day followed by a / character, and the year as well. So again, the key thing in this example was to show you that a date object can be assigned to another date object even though we have not defined what that operator means for class date, and that's because the compiler provides a default assignment operator with every class you define, unless again you create your own assignment operator, what's known as an overloaded assignment operator. Now, one thing to keep in mind as we get into more complex classes is that sometimes our classes will have resources associated with them, at which point we probably are going to want custom assignment operators, overloaded assignment operators. And the reason for that is when you start assigning resources or allocating resources to an object, an assignment like line 20 is going to basically wind up sharing those resources between the objects. And the most important resource that we're talking about is dynamically allocated memory. And most of the time you want each object to manage its own dynamically allocated memory. And for that reason, anytime we have classes that allocate memory dynamically to their data members, what we're typically going to make sure in such a class is that we define our own assignment operator, our own destructor, and again this concept called a copy constructor as well. And we'll talk about those concepts in detail in the lesson in C++ Fundamentals Part 2 on operator overloading.